Welcome back to The Truth with Trinity, and I am your host, Trinity. And if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, I'd like to send you a warm welcome. Here I talk about issues that happen within the Black community, hopefully for some resolution or at least some food for thought to go about your daily way. So, without further ado, I'd like to jump into this episode's topic, which is white America can't trust us if we love each other. So, sometimes I wonder if we as Black people, if we kill and hurt each other subconsciously, not for survival against each other necessarily, but for the comfort of white people. For if we got along in our natural state, it would cause them not to be able to sleep at night due to the fact that they can only be superior if we are inferior. It also goes on to say if we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete and we should be safe. So, this is an excerpt, once again, coming from Willie Lynch, the Willie Lynch letter. So, they're basically saying if they can extinguish our light as Black people as a whole, then they could sleep safely at night. So this was written, a few hundred years back, but a lot of the practices still continue today. And I want to also go on to say that, in the news media, there's been a lot of talks about reparations and just the history of, what has happened in America. And I also want to say that white America gets agitated when Black people, regardless of intelligence, so these are Black senators, people from the urban community, regardless, when they bring up the psychological effects of slavery, you ever notice how, majority of white people, they get upset? And underneath it all, they are ready to kill us when we bring it up. So when we bring up slavery. Some Black people have even said that they get upset because they feel guilty, but it is not out of guilt at all. Then what is it? They get upset anytime we come close to the truth that not only are they unapologetic for their horrific crimes against the indigenous, but also the fact that the very same methods that they chose to enslave Blacks are the very same ones they use today. For example, I want to read you another excerpt from the Willie Lynch letter. Any member of your family or overseer can use this technique. So they're basically saying, so, their daughters, sons, children, anybody, any white person can use these techniques on us. Okay. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. Okay, so basically, it's been perpetuated, especially among us throughout the generations. For us to distrust each other. There's no trust amongst brethren. Black men don't trust Black men. Black women don't trust Black women. Black families are really leery and distrustful of each other. Envy. We envy each other over our gym shoes being a different style, or our hair being different, or a complexion tone. So these are all concocted purposefully to keep us separated as Black people. It also goes on to say distrust is stronger than trust, and that's deep. So as Black people, it's easier for us to distrust each other than to trust each other. So it's easier and it's harder for us to trust each other, especially with this method that has been implemented on us for so many hundreds of years. It's going to take us more work than the average race of people to trust each other. It's so much easier for us not to trust each other. and envy stronger than adulation. So it's easier for us to be jealous of each other than to admire each other. It's so much easier for us as Black people to put each other down. To talk about each other. And so it's harder for us to admire each other. Respect and admiration. Okay, so it goes on to talk about that. So it's easier for us to be jealous and envious of each other than to give each other props. And, uh, for us to, own businesses and whatnot and be happy for our own people. Or when we see one of our people in management, it's more easier to say, oh, that Negro thinks he's all that, versus us being happy for each other. Or it's more easier for a Black person that has education to look down on their Black people instead of trying to help them up, because that's a danger for us to help each other if it's too many Black people succeeding. I also want to go on to say, the Black slaves, after receiving this doctrine, shall carry on and will become self refueling and self generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. So, this is a doctrine that has been instilled in us as Black people in America. Okay, and maybe even other parts of the world, because, Caucasians did conquer other parts of the world where, the Black man and woman are. So, they're saying it would be self refueling. So that's why it kills me. It, it baffles me, when I hear, today's white man and woman, they'll say we had nothing to do with that. We had nothing, to do with our ancestors. But right here it says the doctrine shall become self refueling. So basically, the methods that they instilled will be refueling. That means it'll keep starting up over and over again, the ideas, through our children, and they hope probably for future generations even after us, and self-generating. So this is something, that a process mentally that will keep starting mentally for Black people for hundreds, and they're hoping thousands of years. So it goes on to talk about how, so there's a whole like 4-page document on this, but I wanted to, pinpoint some of the points that I found relevant to my topic's discussion. It says, pitch the old slave against the younger slave, you know and so they're basically talking about Black people. And in our community we have grown, especially in these last 40 years, to have a strong disrespect for our elderly Black people that hold the knowledge, of certain things and just ways of life. And we disregard them. A lot of the youth, especially nowadays in 2021, they'll curse at older people, assault older people. So this has been taught to us basically. And the next point is Black male slave against female slave. So we got a lot of that going on. I'd like to, talk more directly. I've made a couple of episodes, but definitely about the Black man and Black woman, how we're put against each other. And it's one thing for them to have these doctrines, but it's time for the Black man and woman to be mentally strong enough and brave enough. So it's not even just about being strong enough, but we have to be brave enough to love each other. Because from what I'm gathering, it sounds like just for us to even love each other as a whole could get us killed, according to these doctrines that I'm reading, could because they feel like it's a direct threat to their life if Black people were to get along and stop killing each other. So they're feeling comfortable, when we're pointing the gun at each other and we don't even know why. They're feeling comfortable when the Black man is killing the Black woman. They're feeling comfortable when the Black woman, is taking the Black man to jail. They feel really comfortable with that because that's less Black families, that's less Black unity. They get nervous when they see Black people together, and not just with rioting, or violent behavior, but just being together, period. Um, and also, it also goes on to say, dark slave against light slave. So yes, newsflash, light skinned people, you were considered slaves back then. So now, like I said, they're playing games. saying that, biracial people aren't black now, but they definitely was back then. But they've got us doing that now. You know, oh, they're not black enough. When the truth is, we all have mixtures of European blood and Native American blood, but also European blood within us, especially if you're born over here in America. Okay. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. So who's the us? That's white people. They must love, respect, and trust only us. And there's nothing wrong with trusting other races of people. So this is not about hate white people, but I'm not gonna stop bringing forth the truth. I mean, that's deep right there. So it's saying that basically it's very important for us to distrust each other and to trust only them. Okay. It also goes on to say that it describes the rationale and results of the Anglo Saxons' ideas and methods of ensuring the master slave relationship. So, it's interesting. When you hear white people today say, "Oh, I had nothing to do with that. I don't know anything about that." And it says right here, it describes the rationale and results of the Anglo Saxons' ideas and methods. Okay, so they want this master and slave relationship, but yet they will deny that these are their ideas. So they deny it. So that's part of the trickology right there, is to deny what they do so that it can continue to cause confusion amongst us as black people. It's almost like an abuser, when they've done something to hurt your feelings or something, and they say, "Oh, I didn't say anything." So there's a gaslighting technique. I'm not really doing that. Or if they stepped on your toe purposely, and then they say, "Oh, I didn't mean to do that." You bumped into me or something. So this is a whole ideology that they have, that they feel like it's going to continue to work, and it's not. Okay, so to keep going, and many white people claim to say they tell black people to get over it, and that was my ancestors. But check this out. For fear, okay, so they have fear. So for fear that our future generations may not understand, so they're basically saying, their founding fathers basically are saying that, white people in today in a modern society, which would be, now, that they may not understand, their methods of, you know, making black people slaves. They're saying that they may not understand the principles of breaking both of the beast, the Negro, and the horse. It requires us to have long range, comprehensive economic planning. So these plans basically, they happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but the founding fathers, you know, and I know they say this was Willie Lynch letter, but hey, that pretty much goes with all of them. They planned on these methods, having a long range, comprehensive economic effect, on black people. Okay, so it also goes on to say both horse and Negro are no good to the economy in their natural state. Okay, so it says that we're not good, you know, to them in our natural state. And what is our natural state? Our natural state is being the original man and woman of the planet Earth. Our original state is living in harmony and peace. And it's something that, quite frankly, white people have never been able to do, even amongst each other. When you start to study European history, and you see that even when they have lived only with white people, only a white nation, how they've slaughtered and beheaded and killed and burnt each other. So with no other races of people around, they want to, clown and say that, oh, it's because black people are around, when the truth is, if black people were to try to leave, or not even leave this country, but to start to get along, like I said, they would try to kill us. And let's talk about us trying to leave or separate ourselves. They would try to murder us even then, because the truth is they need other races of people around to survive. They cannot survive um, amongst just living around each other. So they try to make this big old slogan about it being a melting pot in this country, that everyone needs everyone, when the truth is they survive off of other people's ideas and inventions, and their aura, and just being around um, other black people, basically. And I want to do an episode on that, about in slavery, how they bragged about having a black person in their bedroom everywhere they went, because it was good luck, and how, our spirit was different than theirs. So I think that's interesting. And I also want to mention about, them feeling uncomfortable, when they can't figure us out. I don't know about you, but I've been at work before, and there'll be, and I work around a lot of white females because of my profession. And they'll walk up and they'll say, "Hey, is there a problem with you?" I don't know if you've ever experienced that, on the workforce. Is there a problem? And you're just minding your own business, right? And they're taught to study us, to study, everything, our facial expressions and everything, because they want to be able to range how far they can control us. So, they want to fire you. They want to get rid of you if they cannot control you. As long as you're loud, as long as you're ghetto, as long as you're, doing the typical things that they've, basically subconsciously trained black people to do, then they feel very comfortable. You ever notice it's always those black people that keep their job, and I think that's the illusion too. um, in this country, there are a percentage, a small percentage of black people that are successful homeowners, have risen to the top, but at what cost? It's always four times the cost of what they pay to get to the top. And also that gives, black people the illusion that everything's okay, just because there's token blacks, that's fine, because there's so many black people that are educated, and they have went to school or whatnot, and they're still living in impoverished areas at times. And I've seen white people who have poor credit, and they're janitors and, sandwich makers for a living, and they live in houses and whatnot. So this is um, you know the frequent injustices that black people have went through. And I encourage black people, especially for my youth that are listening out there, we're going to have to be brave to get along. Okay, so it's easier for us to go against each other and to kill each other. It's so much easier for us to do, because, like I said, then we're safe. It's deep. We're safe when we kill each other, in this country. But if we start to get along, compliment each other, love each other, build families, educate our children. I also want to do a episode about, how the black woman can be free to educate her child, and in what type of atmosphere, but it also takes the black man being in the home as well. But all these venues have to all be implemented together, so that we can break this generational cycle, regardless of who doesn't want us to break it. And this isn't about hating anyone, but if my survival and love of life, and loving my own people is a slap in the face to you, then I refuse to be a slave any longer. And I encourage you to do so as well. Look, it's been a pleasure talking with you all. If you all would like to get in contact with me, you can at thetruthwithtrinity.com. You can also listen to my podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Anchor. And always remember, if you can't tell the truth with anyone else, you can with Trinity. Till next time, take care.